Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what it is. Gather in the room. Gather in the room. Yeah, buddy. This is
Yeah,
long
brother.
overdue. We keep
Yeah,
having guests on this
it is
show
long
that
overdue.
we keep having guests on this show where I'd be like, man, I've been wanting to have this person on the show for this long. Y'all be think I'm lying. Man, I got so many guests. The city of Seattle has so many talented people, and we about to get into one. He's a transplant like me, and we appreciate just all the transplant attractions that Seattle has, and he's one of them. Before we really get started, I want to encourage everyone to, share and comment, get these algorithms going. If you're in the YouTube world, please make sure that you're banging on that like button and banging on that subscribe button. I say this all the time. The best way to support a Black business is to, tune into their podcast. You know what I'm saying? Push play, walk away. We want you to stay, but you can still walk away and we still get paid in those ad dollars and whatnot. And please make sure that you're donating because our time is money, but also it costs money to be on StreamYard. You know what I'm saying? So donate a little bit. Cash App, Logic Man, Venmo at Logic Man. And we have a very, very special guest. This episode is very multi-purposed. We want to, talk about community. We also want to educate you on what a minstrel show is, what a kora is, what a griot is, and we want to introduce you to the person, that's going to use all those devices to bring us some what I like to call edutainment. Shout out to KRS-One. He introduced me to that. But without no further ado, I'd like you to introduce you to my man, Ibrahim Arsalan. Why don't you tell him a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how'd you get to Seattle, man?
Well, I'm originally from Oakland, California. And it's been a long time coming for me to Seattle because before this, I lived in LA for a number of years. And it was down there, actually, at the Crest Unity Center that I was actually leading a kids drumming troupe for, and they asked us to perform at the ASCAC regional conference. And ASCAC, as you know, is based here in Seattle. And they were very impressed with a lot of the work that I was doing, so much so that they were like, "How come you haven't come up to Seattle yet?" And I was like, "I didn't even know Black folks existed in Seattle," you know. And then I was like, I was thoroughly impressed with the amount of organization and dedication that I was seeing from the Black folks in Seattle at that event. So I said, well, as soon as I get the opportunity, I'm coming. And at the time, I was running my own business and everything was tight. And the only way I can justify travel is if it was going to make me some money. And then lo and behold, 6 months after I told them I'll come when I find the opportunity, I got a call from a very aggressive recruiter from Amazon. And just a few weeks after that, I'm in Seattle. So literally from that meeting until like 7 months later, I found myself in Seattle, and it's just, ancestors pulling me up here. And so I came up here working for Amazon, but I started really immediately searching out Black arts community because I remember I was like, this is the people that told me to come up here. And I remember it was like Makeda Ebube, um, and who's a member of ASCAC. And so I reached out to her, and she said, "Oh well, I see what you're trying to do up here." And she said, "You should check out the Griot Party." And I said, "There's an organization here called the Griot Party." And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm I'm a trained Jenny, a griot." I said, "I have to meet these people. If they're on the same page that I'm on, then this is exactly where yeah." So then I ended up going to your event, Logic, the Griot Party event that was at Columbia City Theater. And it was there that I saw, I was like even more impressed. I was like, my goodness, these people, these Black folks are really serious about it, right? And then after that, I remember approaching you and then trying to make sure that I didn't come across like arrogance or anything like that. I was like, humbly, I want to be a part of and involved in what you're doing. I think I have stuff to offer because I come from an actual jelly tradition in Mali, even though there's griot traditions all over the African continent. The one that drew me and spoke to me is the one based out of the Mandan Empire, which is the Mandingo people. And wherever you find them, you will find the kora and the djembe and people who are called jelly doing this work. And but all the griot traditions are valid. They talk with each other and speak to each other quite regularly. The griot tradition in Mauritania gets a lot of respect from the griot tradition in Mandingo country. And as far as East Africa, they have their griot traditions and they share similar ideas and concepts. And so with the griots, there's never like like in Mande, the Mandingo language, the word for blood is joli, and the word jelly comes from the word blood. And so the idea is that the jelly move like blood through a body, and they go and spread out wherever we need to be to keep everybody connected, to keep everybody breathing. And so there's no real boundaries for the griots. There's your tradition that you come from, and that's rooted usually either in an ethnic group or a polity. But you're moving around and interacting with everybody because no community is isolated and it's an island. A community connects with another community. So they'll have stories that'll bridge the gap between them, their own community and then a local community. That's a neighboring community, I should say. There's a great story about that. Do I have time to tell a quick story?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what we do as Jellies. We tell stories all the time. There's the story of how yams got to Igbo country. And an Igbo man saw his, at the time, the people were engaged in they were struggling through a great famine. And when he went to market he went to a far off market in another town desperately looking for food that he can trade for. And when he's on his way to that market, he saw a traveling merchant who was also going to the similar market, but he had in tow a massive set of yams. And yams grow in Africa almost as large as a person, maybe 6 feet tall, 300 pounds.
Mm.
I mean, it's a massive undertaking harvesting yams. And so he sees this and he sees this abundance and he talks to the merchant and he says, "My people desperately need something just like this." So the merchant says to him, I'll trade with you. And he said, we're dealing with a time of famine. We don't have much in the way of trade. And the merchant said, okay, I'm at a conundrum here because if I give you these yams, you'll be able to grow them yourselves. And the next thing you know, you'll be competing with my people for land. He says, so we've got to remedy this. So the Igbo man said, okay, how about this? I will send some of my people to live amongst your people. You send some of your people to live amongst ours in exchange for the yams. And if after so much time, our people have married each other and we've integrated with each other, then everything will be peaceful. The merchant agreed to this, and the deal was sealed. And now these two peoples are now cousins, and they use yams as the basis of their food and trade. And so to tell that story, you got to know both the people that were neighboring as well as the people that you come from. And that's the work that we do is moving like blood to just keep everything flowing and keep people together and connected.
Yeah, that's a great story, man.
Thank you.
Speaking of stories, before we get a little bit further into it, man, you
Yeah.
come from a very, very respected and very, saying familiar place for people up here in the Pacific Northwest, in Seattle, and that's the Bay Area, Oakland. I was calling in San Francisco every time I went down to San Francisco. One of my Pinoy partners, my Filipino partners, said, "Hey, bro, you can't use that
Yeah,
word, bro.
yeah.
They gon' they gonna call you a gentrifier. You better call it the city, or you need to call it Frisco." I was like, "Okay, or
Yeah.
the Bay." So,
Yeah, Oakland,
talk,
Oakland, San Francisco have the same relationship that Brooklyn and Manhattan have. We call
okay,
it the city, and it's like that's kind of where the bougie people live, but the culture is over here in the east.
yeah. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just out down there maybe a month ago, man. In the Bay, so it was good. Um,
yeah.
but talk a little bit about growing up. What was it like growing up in the Bay, and then, what are some things that you did as a child, and what fed into your artistic background and your artistic
Um,
DNA that you have today. Like, what was it like
yeah.
growing up in the Bay, and how did that contribute to your artistic DNA?
Well, when I was a kid, it was very much like a village, like an African village. You would walk down the street in the morning and you could hear chickens in people's yards. People grew food in the backyard. Um, and everybody was looking out for everybody. And that sword cut both ways, right? Like, so there's people looking out for you, but there's also people watching you. So when you would cut up and do something, your parents would hear about it, by the time they got home. And I remember, I'll never forget this. Anytime my mother picked up the phone and was talking, it was like, yes, mm-hmm, oh, okay. And if she cut me a glance and then looked back, I was like, I'm getting a whooping. Soon as she hangs up that phone, I'm getting a whooping. Um, to that point, Oakland was filled with a lot of black folks who escaped the South. They were it was the end of the train lines, and the people that ended up there were people either escaping from a lynch mob, like my great grandfather literally escaped a lynch mob, or people were like, well, if they ain't lynching them now, they will be. So they like put them on the train and send them out. And so all these people sort of coalesced, and then they started having families, very large families. And so in my family, we were not a large family. We were unusually small. Like my father and his three sisters. That's just four kids. All the kids around them, it's like all the families around them have like 13, 14, 15 kids, right? And that led for some interesting dynamics. You got all these people coming from fighter families and learning to fight, and they're fighting each other, and then they're intensifying the fight. And then that feeds right into the Black Panther Party, right? Like my parents described to me how everything changed right after Martin Luther King was assassinated. First, the city was on fire. And then after the fire was over, in that sort of collect calm that comes after the storm, they started thinking about revolution. And so then that's what you start getting. You start getting the revolutionary spirit. I mean, Black Panther Party was founded at Mills College, right, just like less than a mile away. Bruce Lee come from Seattle and set up his first school in Oakland because he was pissed off at how he got treated in San Francisco. He liked the style that was going on in Oakland. All of that stuff was coalescing around at the same time. That was my parents' generation. And then that's what raised me up. My parents, they were in their own way continuing the Jenny tradition that's in our ancestry. Anytime I want to know who's related to who and the particular details of their family, I just talk to my mother. I just ask her, so what about Ricky Gray and blah, blah, and she'd be like, oh yeah, so he had so many, and she'll name off all the sisters' names. She'll name off the mother and the father. She'll be able to tell you, okay, but though that was between that first two sisters of his is between the first wife, but the second wife is actually from the third. My mother will just be doing this as just flow of consciousness. She's not even thinking about it in terms of this is a legacy we have to uphold. It is just a part of her being now, right? And like an example of this is when we went to there was an exhibit for Flint's, which is a legendary barbecue shop down in it's a chain of them in Oakland. And my mother went to the exhibit, and the woman who was running the exhibit was actually one of the daughters of who helped establish the shop. My mother, first thing she said when she walked up to us, I know your sister. You and I never met, but I know your sister. And she named the sister, and she said, because we went to school together, and I remember when y'all was first opening Flint's, and she was passing out flyers at the party for your mother, blah, blah, blah. And she named her mother. And the woman teared up and embraced my mother and said, oh my God, we're family. How do you know this? Da, 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 da. And I'm watching my mother engaged in the Griot tradition in the modern age. And so those are the people that raised me. They raised me with a deep understanding that these traditions come from Africa and that this is who you are. This is what makes you, is how you continue a legacy forward into the future, because those who came before you, they had it worse than you and they maintained. And so you got to maintain for those who are going to come after you. So that's what it was like growing
Right.
up.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the kora. You said that you went to Africa and you learned how to play the kora. We went
Yes.
over what is a griot or jali or jelly, which is the blood. You know, they're storytellers, they're poets, basically the custodians of culture and tradition. You know what I'm saying? In many pre-colonial civilizations in Africa. Talk about the kora. You were playing the kora before, what I'm saying, we came in. What is the kora? What is
As my teacher told me when I first learned the Korah, he said, all the knowledge and the science of a suspension bridge is in the construction of the Korah.
Yeah, that looks like the Narrows Bridge in Tacoma.
And if you turn it upside down, you have the Ankh.
Wow.
You have the crossbar and the womb. And these pieces represent that. This is the womb. This represents the womb. This represents the phallic principle. And these strings represent the development of life over the first 24 years of our lives. And so the Korah was constructed to be a repository of knowledge and a transmitter of knowledge, and to have an effect on people's bodies and their minds and their spirits, particularly through their head. through what we would call today the crown chakra. There's a different term for it in Mandingo. But the idea in the word in Mandingo for, there's a word in the Mandingo language, nyama. Nyama, the only close translation in English to it would be from Star Wars, the Force. And the belief amongst the Mande people is that the greatest way to gather up and wield nyama is through story. Every nation needs a story. Every people need a story to walk them into the future. Families need stories. They tell the stories about their ancestors. They tell stories to their children to guide them on their destiny. The kora was designed for the transmission and memorization of all that storytelling. It then traveled with us as we arrived in a new world because there were people who just knew how to build these things from memory. So the first banjo kora-like instrument that was ever built was made out of a pumpkin gourd, goat skin over the gourd, a bamboo neck, and catgut strings. You know, they just put together whatever they could find and and created that first one, and it sounded twangy and what we would call country today. But that sound allowed them to continue to transmit these stories, allowed them to continue to have this legacy, which is truly the nature of civilization, right? Civilization is not what stone buildings that you built, or it's the fact that you passed on knowledge and culture. Example of this is the pyramids are not the civilization of the Egyptians. The effects and the knowledge that they pass forward through the act of building those pyramids, the way in which they basically affected the entire world around them. That's civilization, right? And this is the understanding of our people and our legacy. And so this is something that we're going to be doing a modern minstrel show. The minstrel show began with the banjo, soft shoe. So I'm taking it back to that original origin with the kora. The banjo comes from the kora. Now we're bringing it full loop back to the kora again.
So let's talk about that real quick. You're doing a minstrel show and you asked me to be a part of it. I'm so honored and humbled to be a part of it because we've been doing work we've been doing work for at least 5 years now. We've been doing
Yeah, man.
stuff, poetry and stuff. Yeah, we've been in a lot of shows together. We got good chemistry. We got something going on, and it's become a brotherhood through the
Mm.
arts, but specifically through story, the sharing of stories. And people just be think that I just be saying that casually, and I'm just like, oh, he's just corny, man, doing this storytelling. But no, stories are the key to solving a lot of our problems in our society. If we just sat down and learned each other's stories, we will be on the pathway to healing a lot of our generational and historic trauma, as long as those stories aren't, go, unmitigated and not distracted or disrupted by outside forces. If
You
we
got a
just
great
sat
point.
down for a period of time and was
Mhm.
undistracted by outside forces, we could get to the bottom and the root and the solution and resolution of our problems through storytelling. I remember one time I was giving you a ride home because I want to get
Mhm.
to this minstrel show and then let people know when it's going to be going on because I'm excited for it. I was giving you a ride home and we were talking about the Ifa and we're talking about Yoruba. And you said something to me probably about 4 or 5 years ago
Mhm.
that stuck with me for years. And I say it a lot. And you said a lot of our problems can be solved by Yoruba or the Ifa. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? A lot of our problems can be addressed. And I learned that when I was in Ghana. They said it in so many ways. When I would go there and speak to a lot of the people, the native people, um, who speak like Twi, or you know what I'm saying, the Akan people, they
Mhm.
would be like, that word doesn't exist here. And a lot of times we are introduced to certain words that bring about certain concepts that are really foreign, to us as a people. And we try to implement them in our life. And it's almost like we're forcing it. We're going out of our way to be unlike ourselves. So it's really interesting when you told me that, like, a lot of our problems can be resolved through that. And I see a lot of it, man. Like,
Yeah.
a lot
Because
of the
what?
diversity in our community and stuff like that, we can understand each other a lot more when it comes to gender, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to love, how we love each other, how we
Mhm.
spread peace. I have a different understanding of what peace is now, just from studying a lot of African spiritual systems.
Yeah.
But when you say the word minstrel, you said, man, Logic, I want you to be in a minstrel. The first thing that popped into my mind, I said, "Are we doing blackface?" I was like, I don't know it. But you were trying to explain to me how a minstrel show was actually a problem. I'm like, hey man, I ain't trying to get canceled, man. I got a job, man. Can't be doing no blackface. Even though I do know the history of blackface and I do understand it. But tell us a little bit about a minstrel show and why this is appropriate.
So if you look at the core elements of a minstrel show was usually uh, first it was a banjo. There was always a banjo initially. Um, there was sometimes a soft shoe going on. Um, these were the influence that black folks used to entertain themselves. I mean, the whole reason why there was a soft shoe and the sand was being spread around and they were shuffling on the sand was because they didn't want master to hear that they was out actually enjoying themselves. And the banjo was our instrument, it's what we played for ourselves. And so there was also too these events. It was called Gandhi dancing, and what they would do is they would put on the people who are allowed to work in the house. They would come dressed up like the white folks at the dinner parties that they had to serve, and they would act out and make fun of the absurdity, the grotesque absurdity of white society, of just common American society, what they could see of it, right? And they would make these jokes, and they'd be biting satire on this grotesque absurdity. And every one of our cultures in the Western Hemisphere had it, right? Like we had this in Brazil. They would go out to a certain area just out past the plantation where the tall grasses were growing because the trees had just been cleared and they hadn't quite prepared the area for farming. Those tall grasses were called the capoeira, and that's where they were going out and they were training and doing this dance. Yeah, it's a fight, but you ain't really trying to fight each other because you got to work. It was more of a dance entertainment, keeping ourselves set and focused. But there was a lot of theatrics going on in it, and there were things that that's what, and it still survives in the movements in that art form. Like the front kick is called bensao, which means blessing. And why is it called blessing? Because when it's first delivered to you from one master to a new student, they shake your hand and then they kick you in the chest with a front kick, and you go flying back, and then they go benzo, like you've been blessed. And that goes back to slave days, where anytime a slave came into the presence of his master, he had to ask for a blessing, and the master would bless him, and then not 5 minutes later be beating the hell out of him. And so that's how we made it possible for ourselves to endure an impossible situation filled with impossible contradictions, is that we found a way to laugh at the contradictions, right? We would just go, my God, this is so absurd. I gotta laugh to keep from crying. And so that's what the minstrel show was originally, was that. It became known as the minstrel show when whites got wind of what we was doing. And then when they saw it, the master was like, I want you to play that banjo for me. I want you to do that soft shoe for me. I want you to entertain me and the missus. And then white itinerant traveling performers started seeing what black folks were doing, started learning it, and then I can do it better. I'll put on the black face and really play it up. Everything from the white gloves that are worn, and it pervades all throughout society now, right? Like the reason why Mickey Mouse has the white gloves and the black with the that's minstrel show imagery. And so my
I be
point is,
trying to, I be trying to explain that to people. Like
mhm,
there's some like, some of my white, friends on Facebook, they'll deny me up and down. I'm like, go read this book. Go read this book. But Mickey Mouse is blackface.
yeah,
And white folks, they were very, very smart, very, very intelligent copycats because they
yeah,
would see us and we would take like different orishas or different, saying deities and whatnot, and we would have these fables.
hmm,
And for instance, one of the fables we have is Anansi. Anansi
yeah,
is a trickster. He's a spider, and he tricks him. When we came to America, a lot of the enslaved people had a character, and their name was Brer Rabbit. Brer
hmm,
Rabbit was a trickster. He's inspired by Eshu. He's a
yeah,
trickster. Brer Rabbit became Bugs Bunny.
yeah,
And it became a trickster type theme from Bugs Bunny, you know what I'm saying,
hmm,
to even Roadrunner trying to get away from Wile E. Coyote, whoever Elmer Fudd's arch nemesis was. You know what I'm
hmm,
saying? I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to catch up. So, but Mickey Mouse was just another way where they use cartoons as like fables to hide their racism, but also to hide where they actually, in plain sight, where they actually got the knowledge
yeah.
from.
And that
So
was so
it's
pervasive in
interesting
that
because
era.
it's interesting you said that because blackface really started off as whiteface. It was
Yes,
us imitating them.
exactly. And that's what I'm trying to get it back to, is the satire of this modern grotesque reality, right? Because you use what works. It worked for our ancestors, and we've been going back to it over and over again. If you look at the uh, um, Dave Chappelle show, that's a minstrel show.
In living
It even
color.
it even starts off with an old black man playing the guitar in the very beginning, and he gives him a little money, and then let's start the show, right? You go back to In Living Color, the structure of the show, the fact that there's dancers and that there's music in between the episodes, and everything is just, they're turning everything on its head. They have people actually in whiteface on the show, right? Uh, when Eddie Murphy pretty much ran Saturday Night Live, he was doing minstrelsy, black minstrelsy. He was putting on whiteface and making fun of the absurdity of modern society. Then you go all the way back to the one who really starts it all and sets it in motion. It's arguable you could say Flip Wilson, but I argue that it really was Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor comes in and goes, "All right, I'm gonna do 4 episodes, Richard Pryor show, and that's it. I'm just gonna mic drop it." And and all 4 of those episodes, he's following the minstrel format, but he's bringing it back to us. He's making fun of what's going on in society, what's happening to us. And by us, it's not just black folks. It's poor and working class people who are right in the same situation that we're in, right? And that's really what it's all about, is getting back to that, continuing that legacy, right? Because those things were how many decades ago? And we don't have a minstrel show now. We don't have our own show in which we're reaching our people on a mass scale and getting them to laugh at the situation that they're in, but at the same time learning things as they're laughing at it. They're going, "Oh, okay, so that's what the game is." And it's, "Yep, that's what's going on right now." So that was the inspiration
Yeah,
for doing
man.
the show.
So tell us about your Minstrel Show. It's going to be November 9th and 10th at 7 p.m. at Langston Hughes Cultural Arts Center. I know it's got other names, but that's the name that I grew up on before it was owned by the city. So don't trip. It has many names. It's going to be in the legendary, historic, landmark Central District, or what I like to call the Color District, the Carbon District. You know what I'm saying? Tell us about your minstrel show, the 9th and 10th at Langston Hughes Cultural Arts Center, man. What can they expect when they get this ticket to this incredible show?
Oh, you're going to see there's going to be kora and storytelling. You're going to get comedy. Excuse me. There's going to be the main scene is filled with both drama and comedy. It's tragic comedy, which is what we do best, right? We talk about the wretched ugliness of the society, but we have fun talking about it, right? Make the best of it. You're going to that's the show in a nutshell. Is we're going to be having fun, and we're going to be learning something in the process, and we're trying to make this show a seasonal event. So every season there should be a new show coming up, and this is the first one. This is the inaugural show. So
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I'm really excited. I'm in a scene, or I just or a sketch or a skit where it's three brothers sitting in a circle. You're in the scene with me. Ibrahim, I gotta tell you, man, the writing is dope, bro. Like,
thank you,
and
brother.
we're sitting there, we're talking about relationships, and it's a really, really good scene. It's something that I'm really, really into, and that's black men coming together and being vulnerable, talking about their feelings, and also talking about masculinity too. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
great blend of feminine and masculine energy. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's just a really good experience, and you got some other
Mm-hmm.
sketches in there that include spoken word, that include improv. There's a scene with four women.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, to be honest with you, there's a couple chords that you were playing that actually sounded like the chords from Four Women from Nina Simone. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but it's something, it sounded like, the
Nina
Four
Simone is
Women group that
definitely
heard the
one of my
song.
great musical influences. So
Yeah, man,
it
she's
creeps
a
in
bad
there. So
woman.
maybe
She's a
something.
bad woman. But I'm just really excited to be a part of this. And I want to encourage everyone to come out November 9th and 10th at Langston Hughes Cultural Arts. If y'all want to get some tickets to this bad boy, like I know y'all do, I know. And look, man, I know. Let me just go ahead and say for the people who are trying to already make excuses not to come because I ain't into all that African stuff. It's not like that. It's blended. It's modern. It's traditional. It's pre-colonial. Has some post-colonial there, but the most of it is about Black people now in America and how they're influenced by their past. And it isn't a time machine thing. It really is a microscopic look into the personal relationships that a lot of Black people have. It really is like coming to a Dave Chappelle show, like you're a part of the live studio audience at the Dave Chappelle show, or you know what I'm saying, or like in Living Color. It really is like you're a live studio audience member there, and it's going to be really good. So go ahead, you can go ahead and cut and paste or copy down this web address, and you can get your tickets there. You can also check out my guy on Instagram. He's www.instagram.com slash /songline, and you can get some information there. It's going to be on my reel and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. I'm going to go ahead, if you DM me, I'm going to go ahead and give some complimentary tickets for the first 5 people that DM me. Go ahead and inbox me. I'm going to go ahead and cover you and give you some complimentary tickets because you need to be a part of this. And if you want to be a part of any future ones, you need to come to this one. You know what I'm saying? Because to be selected to be a part of this cast, I'm so honored because it was a very short list. You know what I'm saying? And if man, the women actors are oh man, they're amazing. Karama, Miss Flows. What's that other sister's name? Who does the accent
Aisha Keita.
yeah, Aisha, man, she does this Nigerian accent. It's off the hook. It's just a really, really good performance, man. And you say you're gonna have a live band there too?
Yes, it's gonna be live band there. We'll be playing and cutting it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting once you come to this production with the background knowledge that you have from watching this show, you'll understand how white or melanin deficient or you know what I'm saying, producers pretty much just stole the idea from watching enslaved black people on plantations working through our trauma and our pain and made it a Hollywood experience. They took the blueprint, everything that you see in Hollywood, sitcoms, you're just broadcasting on TV, all the stuff you grew up, the format, the blueprint, the seed, you know what I'm saying, are nothing but just branches of what Ibrahim is bringing to us on stage live at Langston Hughes, November, you know what I'm saying, 9th and 10th at 7 p.m. You're going to see the root, the root chakra, so to speak. You know what I'm saying, where all life is coming from, you know what I'm saying? So won't you go ahead and finish us off today and you got the last word, what you want people to hear, man, before, you know what I'm saying, they, come find out, you know what I'm saying, what your magnificent, vision has, created into.
There's one thing that stays constantly on my mind, and it drives me in every artistic endeavor I engage in, and that is until the lion learns to speak, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And that's it.
Yeah.
So we got to
So
speak.
so every griot party I say, I have, what is that plan of action or what is the homework? Come to the show. That's the plan of action. That's the homework. And on top of that, is just do your research on what a minstrel show is and fact check all the breadcrumbs that we dropped off today and make your own loaf of bread to eat from. Because, hey, I always say don't take nothing on face value. Go ahead and fact check this stuff. You Google this stuff, you're going to be amazed. Hey, I look forward to seeing you again, brother, at rehearsals. And I also look forward to seeing y'all at the Minstrel Show November 9th and 10th at 7 p.m. And we out. It's been C Talk. Love y'all.
All
Make
right.
sure y'all sharing this. Make sure you guys are commenting this. Make sure you guys are subscribing.